Trail. I don't know if you guys can see where we're at exactly. There is mountains behind. I guess I could lift it up.
Tip it down a little bit.
I could lift it up here so you guys could see where we're at. But yeah, out here on the Appalachian Trail. I'm with my buddy here, Alpha Gal, also known as Crizaconi on YouTube. What's going on, everybody? I tell you, we had a great day hiking in, but I wanted to start off this conversation before we get into the core topic, which is tips for backpacking the Smokies. We started out at Winding Stair going northbound, but it was not like any other backpacking trip because, well, I guess it was like other backpacking trips. Not what you've been going through recently. It was snow everywhere. So
it was crazy.
I mean, as soon as you got on trail, everything was covered in snow. But before that, you know, you started your hike at Amicalola Falls back on February 20.
February 24th, I had started. And it was nice. It was warm. It was going excellent.
Yeah, man. Well, let's see, we're getting a little adjustment here.
A little. Oh, there we go.
Well, there was no snow, and then you get to Winding Stair and it was just covered. So for 2 days, like we were just in snow everywhere. Like the first night where we that we camped. What shelter was the name of the shelter we were at?
Oh, I don't remember. It was I don't remember. I have to look. I can look it up.
Either way, the shelter was completely packed, right? There was no room in the inn. So snow is everywhere. So we had to end up actually camping on the snow itself. And it made for a cold night. Got into the 20s. So camping on snow is not necessarily a bad thing, but the wind on top of it all, it was freezing out there. So conditions have been pretty cold. There's been a lot of snow everywhere. But we decided, you know, to push on, right? So the next day, I would say we moved into Tellico Gap. And that's actually where we met up with a friend of ours named PTL.
Yep, PTL was there.
PTL was there with his wife, Sue. And they actually
brought trail magic.
Trail magic.
It was unbelievable.
Are you kidding me? Now, PTL, I met him a few years back, actually in 2020 when he was doing his through hike of the Appalachian Trail. It was on the backside, I guess the south side of Blood Mountain Peak and so forth. And he was all excited to do his through hike. And then 5 years later, now we run back into him at Tellico Gap. So it was incredible to see him. Thank you so much, PTL. Definitely appreciate that. But from there, we went up to was it the Wesserbald or the
We went up over Wesser. Waya was back behind, and then it was Waya.
The Waya Bald, the overlook.
The tower.
The tower. Man, I'm telling you what.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal view. So for those that are just getting started with backpacking the Appalachian Trail, I love Georgia and I have my favorite section, but if you're looking for a great section to hike, Winding Stair into NOC provides some stellar views along the way. Seiler Bald was one of them.
That was awesome.
That was incredible. Really, completely
do
covered
not
in
miss
snow.
Seiler Bald.
Oh.
It says 0.2, but it's like 360 views up there. You can see all around, lots of mountains. I mean, it's not that hard to go up. It is uphill 0.2, but it wasn't that bad.
But when we saw Seiler, again, everything was covered in snow, so we got this winter wonderland that was just...
It was amazing.
Amazing. So I don't know if you have seen Crizaconi's channel or not. Make sure you go check that out because he's already putting his videos out. In fact, you're doing an excellent job.
So this is kind of cool. Like, people complain about internet connectivity and cell phone use and things on the Appalachian Trail. Since I've started at Springer Mountain, I've had really good connectivity, and I've been able to push out a 5 to 10 minute video actually every day while on trail, without exception. Right now, I'm 1 for 1 day. What am I? Day 14. This is day 14, I think.
And every day he's putting out a video.
One out.
So
I just put one out like a half hour ago.
Kudos to Crizaconi. That hike though, from again the view and everything we were hiking through. Instead of me just talking about it to become blue in the face, you can also watch that on his channel. My videos won't be out for a while because I like to stagger them.
Yeah.
But moving forward from there, was the next really big overlook was the Waya Bald overlook as well.
Waya Bald was spectacular. That's that rock one, right? With
I
the
believe so,
right?
right? With I'm not sure. I
think it was.
There's a huge fire tower there. Again, we have some shorts that are out there. I think it was
Wesser.
Wesser
the
Bald.
fire tower.
Yeah, the fire tower was incredible. Again, Pano 360 views, incredible. So again, if you're getting started with hiking the Appalachian Trail and don't know which section to really start with, if you can do Winding Stair and NOC, you're going to get all of these great views along the way.
And that's not a bad day hike. If you come into Tellico Gap from the west side. The road's not that long. It turns to dirt for a couple miles, but it's very well graded. There's excellent parking there, and it's only like a mile and a half, I think, up to the tower with just spectacular views from, oh, this is really cool. From on the tower, you could look across the valley to where the Great Smoky Mountains are, and you could actually see Kauai out there in the distance. Kauai, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Kauai.
So I look at that, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be there in 5 days. So, you know, just working around the edges,
work along the
getting
ridge
up
line
there.
and getting there. Also, and going into the NOC, there's this beautiful little ridge line. Again, it's very narrow, but you've got awesome views on both sides. Just hiking into the NOC, you really can't go wrong with that section. So as we hiked into the NOC, we actually ended up staying over at Rambling Roots
Rambling
Hostel.
Roots.
Bookie is the owner of Rambling Roots, and she does a great job over there. In fact, the amenities are super clean. There are clean bathrooms, clean showers, and there are a bunkhouse and private rooms available. So if you are in the NOC area, we definitely recommend anyone to stop at the Rambling Roots Hostel to recharge and to just rest up, because it is a great spot. She also offers shuttles too. So if you're trying to hit different sections as you're moving along the trail going up into the Smokies, she can provide you some shuttle services as well to get back and forth in case there's inclement weather, because that kind of is where I'm going with this next conversation. Is with the Smokies is kind of a different animal as a whole. So leading into the Smokies, which is where we're actually headed right now, I'm not going to say exactly where we're at, but we're on our way to Fontana Dam as we speak. After you get to Fontana Dam and then start entering into the Smokies, that's when life's going to become a lot different. But leading up to that point, again, Bookie, Rambling Roots Hostels, she can pick you up, she can drive you to where you need to go. Again, for a fee, make sure you contact her in advance if you are looking to reserve these types of shuttles or to reserve a room or a bunk in her spot, because it does go quick, especially with the bubble coming through.
Yeah, the bubble's coming.
There's hundreds of people now on the Appalachian Trail that just started at Amicalola Falls a week ago, so I can only imagine how many people are going to be coming through the area now, moving into the NOC and so forth. So it's just going to be crazy. So make sure you call ahead. If you're looking for Rambling Roots information, I guess you could either hit up Hikers of America. There is a link there for shuttles and hostels that will showcase her website, or you could just do a general Google search, and I'll try and put a phone number or I guess a website down below after this live stream goes into effect. Now, let's talk about the Smokies. And the reason why I want to talk about the Smokies is because my friend here, Chris Alpha Gal, is about to head into the Smokies. And the first thing I want to tell everyone before you go into the Smokies, things to consider: you have to have a permit. It's not something that you can just walk into the woods and then pop one on your phone. You got to have it before you enter into the park. In fact, you actually have to print it out. It's a system for everyone to notify people that you are actually in the park, because when you get your permit, there's actually two pieces.
Right.
One piece goes in where you enter, and then the other piece goes in where you exit. And the reason why is on those pieces of paper, you have an entry date on there and how many days you expect to be out there. You can only be in the Smokies with a through hiking permit for 8 days. So however you do that in terms of your entry date to the exit date, you only have 8 days. So once that's going, you need to make sure you move on down the trail, or let's keep moving from point to point. So one, you got to have a permit, and two, you got to print it out, because you do have to drop it inside of the drop box.
And what's interesting, since I've gotten the permit, I got it right when I started. I've been carrying it with me. They get your contact information as part of the registration process. They've been really good. I've been getting regular, I can't remember if it's text messages or emails from them about different warnings in the park. For a while, there was a burn ban, a site-wide burn ban that came up. That's since been lifted, so now you can have fires again. Certain areas that are closed or open or bear activity, I periodically get these updates, which is super nice of them to keep the hikers updated coming into the park, to know what to expect when you get in there.
Another thing is that it's not free. It does cost, I think it was $40.
40, yeah.
So one, reserve in advance. Two, print it out. And then three, it's going to cost you $40. And then you obviously have 8 days to get from point to point. Now, why is that important? Well, I will say, if you are starting at Fontana Dam and then moving into the Smokies, that day one leading up to Shuckstuck Tower, that's going to be a huge climb. Now today, we were hiking in from NOC into this area, and that's a good climb. It's a good train for what you're going to be experiencing once you get into the Smokies, entering at Fontana Dam. But it is a continual climb past Shuck Stack. It just feels like it just never ends, right? And you're going to hit a number of shelters along the way. But the thing to consider, again, with the Smokies is that you have to stay in a shelter. As tempting as it might be to find a nice little campsite, and there are some camp
There
rings
are
out,
some, yep.
which is strange. It's like, why are these camp rings here? How are people camping if they're not allowed? I don't have the answer for that.
I don't know.
And they still exist today. But even if you see them, you cannot camp there. You're supposed to go to a shelter. And at the shelter itself, you have to stay in the shelter. Now, for those that don't know this, though there are going to be hikers passing through that actually have permits for the shelter that you might have selected. So you might say, oh, I've got a great day. I'm rolling into this shelter. This place is all mine. Well, kind of. As if the other through hikers come through, yeah, first come, first serve. But if there's other hikers, day hikers, or hikers that have just done a section of the Smokies, they have reserved those shelters in advance, and they have priority. So if they come in, you're going to have to pack up all your stuff and then move out, and you're going to have to set up a camp next to the shelter itself. So make sure you keep that in mind. Now, I do want to talk about some of the places that I stopped. If you're looking to plan a hike to get in and out, excuse me, within 5 days. The first place I stopped at was Spencefield Shelter. There's actually a video on that. Day 1 and 2 of the Smokies is up on my channel, so if you haven't seen that yet, please make sure you check those out. I definitely appreciate the support. But night 1, we stayed at Spencefield Shelter, and most of the shelters all look the same. I think all of them are pretty much the same. Double stack with a little ladder in the middle, and it has a campfire to the side. Most of them have privies. I would check in advance. The ones we stayed at had privies, so I'll go ahead and mention those now, which was the Spencefield Shelter. The next day was Double Spring Gap, followed by Icewater Spring, and then night 4 we were at Cosby Knob, and then on day 5 we exited at Davenport Gap. Now, for those that are entering the Smokies as well, what I just told you in terms of the shelters we stayed at, that is ambitious. So again, as you're getting into the Smokies from Fontana Dam, it is a huge climb. These shelters are not necessarily close to each other, but I was doing between 15 and 20 miles per day to get in and out of the park within 5 days. Now, as tempting as it might be, there is a way out of the Smokies, which would be Newfound Gap. We hit that after we went over Kawohi, and I'll get to that in a second. But before we talk about that, the Smokies, there are limited areas on the AT. Once you've gone up this huge incline to the ridgeline, you're up there. And there's trails that do allow you to get off of the trail, but they are very long and somewhat unmaintained. I would say they're more bushwhacky is what I would say. They don't feel as maintained as the AT because so much foot traffic comes through. So once you're in the Smokies, you need to plan to just stay out there. So not only is it difficult in terms of the terrain, lots of inclines and so forth, and the weather can change at any time, you're gonna have to be carrying most of your food unless you do stop at Newfound Gap and go into town. Now, with that being said, I wanted to mention that right now, I don't think that Kawohi is open. Klingman's Dome, when we were there, all of the amenities were closed. So on Google, it said that they were open at a certain time. We're like, oh, great. We're going to be able to summit Kawohi and go in and recharge our batteries, go to the bathroom, maybe get a Snickers bar or some Coca-Cola. Nope. None of that happened. In fact, when we got there, we didn't see anybody there because the place was closed. Closed to foot traffic, closed to people coming through because the road was closed leading to it. So not only was the park closed, or that particular section of Kawohi, the restrooms were locked and there was no electrical, there was no place to do any type of resupply. So my batteries were near dead. I only had my GoPro alive at that point. My Garmin was going bad. I thought I had enough power sources to power me through, but with that being said, what kind of power sources are you using knowing that you're going to be out there for 5 days? What is your power bank? What is it? What kind of wattage are you
So
using?
my power, I've got an iPhone 15 is what I've been using to film the videos. And like right now, I got a video out and I uploaded it. I'm at about 45% right now. So I'll recharge that tonight. I've got a 10,000 milliamp hour night core, a fairly lightweight one. I can get about a charge and a half out of that. So I'll
About
be able to.
5.2 ounces on that. It's relatively
It's really light. And then I've got another one, which is an Anchor, which is not 10,000, it's 12,000 milliamp hours. That one is a little more sophisticated. I like it because it charges super fast with the right charger. If I get into a hostel or even a parking lot, if I find a plug somewhere, I can charge the whole thing from almost empty to almost full in like under a half hour. I mean, it just soaks it up. Now, going into the Smokies, I added on top of the 10,000 and the 12,000, I'm carrying an extra 20,000 just in case. So it's an older style Anchor 20,000 power bank. I made sure it was charged. I've got it with me. It's heavy. It's like, I don't know, 12 ounces or something. And but I don't want to,
Run out of juice.
taking the number of photos I've been taking and trying to upload videos and keep my GPS going. I've got, the little GPS tracker thing. It should go 5 days, but I like to keep it topped off too. So I'm what, 20, 30, 42,000.
Looks like you're stacked with power. So that being said,
attack your fears, right?
Make sure you bring additional power banks if possible, because you probably will run out if you are using electrical devices, just like your phone. Make sure you put your phone on airplane mode. I know it might be kind of a no-brainer, but I will say that most of the way through the Smokies, I did have internet reception to some extent, but it was pulling from my phone. So there was a couple times where I forgot to pull it on airplane mode. So it was searching for the towers and it was pulling out a lot of extra energy. Again, my batteries were close to dead, or if not dead by the time I exited the park. So make sure you bring extra power banks, but also consider the extra weight that you're going to be bringing with you. So extra food, extra weight with the power banks. It just becomes a lot, again, with the terrain being, I would say, challenging and technical, because it kind of goes me into the next point here. When we were going on to Kauai, once we got past that point and we were on the backside going northbound, a lot of the ice was melting. A lot of the water was just going down the backside of the mountain. So the trail was just covered in water, lots of mud, lots of rocks. It was very technical. So lots of weights on you. You're tired, you're running out of juice, and now you're going down the backside of this mountain that's somewhat technical. So keep that in mind as you go into the Smokies. As another tip is that you want to make sure that you have trained up with enough weight in your pack, because you're going to need that to keep you juiced throughout the entire trail. Now, food. That was something else I wanted to talk about. I brought 5 days worth of food.
I'm carrying 5 days.
And I thought that I would be, more than fine and have leftovers. Well, that wasn't the case on this backpacking trip. I did have friends with me that were sharing their snacks, and I was very gracious for that. But I ended up eating all of my food. Everything I had in my pack was gone by the time I exited the park. And in fact, I was starting to bum off snacks with some of my friends, like, oh my God, you got anything you can share with me? Now, some of the best snacks that I've had on trail, though, is something you can't get anywhere. And this comes from my friend Luscious. Luscious versus the AT. Make sure you check out his channel if you haven't heard of him already. He is a great guy. His videos will be out later. He's already probably at mile 600, 700 at this point. But he had something called Luscious Loot. I think I covered that in one of my videos. It might be covered in Rocky Top, but he had some of the best ingredients in there. I'm talking peanut butter M&Ms, macadamia nuts, pumpkin seeds, the works. Everything you could possibly imagine was in this this setup, and it was 2,000 calories in one little snack bag. He had extras that was mailed into him as a resupply box, so I had plenty of extra snacks coming to me from Luscious. So Luscious, if you're watching this, thank you so much. Your Luscious Loot is legendary, and hopefully others will get a chance to try that if you run into Luscious on the AT moving forward. So we've talked about food. You want to bring enough food. You want to bring enough juice, power for all your electrical devices. But also, the other thing I would say is that you need to be prepared not to see anybody. Now, when we went, we didn't see hardly anyone because it was the beginning of February for the most part. Now, with through hiking season going through, I could imagine you're going to see more and more hikers, but it hasn't been too packed for the most part in the actual areas.
It's not crowded right now.
So by the time people get to the Smokies, people start to peter off a little bit. So I thought what was really strange that not only did we see people out there, but I didn't really hear or see a lot of animals. I don't know if they were all sleeping because it was wintertime, But I thought it was very strange that we didn't see any type of wildlife. I saw maybe a handful of birds. A grouse startled ET and I as we were going around the corner, but we didn't hear any sounds. It was eerily silent out there. It was a very, I don't know. It was very strange to me to be so familiar with being out in the woods and then be on the Appalachian Trail and not to see hardly any animals. So if you guys have any answers about that, put a comment down below for why it's so silent out there in the Smokies. The weather, that's also a good conversation point. We talked about snow as we were coming from Winding Stair, going northbound, and snow just came out of nowhere. It was supposed to be a light dusting. Well, I don't know what the
4 inches worth of a light dusting.
right, so in the Smokies, it can go from patchy fog to rain to sleet to snow. It's very hard to gauge what temperatures or what type of weather you're going to be facing while you're out there. So again, I'm not talking about packing your fears. It's about being ready for those elements. Now, I kept a number of different elements in my pack, and one of the things that kept me the warmest out there, I would say, was my SQUAK. I don't know if you guys have seen the microgrid fleece that I've been talking about, but the SQUAK is an excellent microgrid fleece. It's relatively cheap in terms of the cost, but it has a very high quality and it keeps you warm. So make sure you do bring some warmer clothes, especially this time of year, if possible. Even if you didn't bring it in your pack, thinking, oh, hey, maybe I can cut some weight here, I would recommend to have all of the warm clothes in your pack because weather does fluctuate pretty quickly. Now, when we were out there, it was between 30 and 50 degrees. So it was already pretty cold to start with, but it's still wintertime. So those that are going into the Smokies, especially with the recent snowstorm, I would recommend to have an extra garment or a microgrid fleece like a SQUAK, something that you can keep warm with at night because it does get cold. Again, you have to stay in the shelters. They do have tarps up there to kind of block the cold wind at times. But again, being in the shelter, not really having any other control, you need to be prepared for some cold temps out there. Now, Chris Oconee, what have you done specifically to prepare for backpacking in the Smokies? What was other things that you've been doing to get yourself ready for this hike?
Well, coming in, just my physical condition. Starting off about 2 weeks ago, I'm resisting the urge to hike too far, too fast, too soon. So I'm holding around 9-10 mile days. Coming into the Smokies, they're going to be about 8 miles a day. But I know as soon as I get in the Smokies, I've got mostly 11s and 12s, and I have a pair of 17s in there to get out in the time period I want to do. So I'm kind of sandbagging here early on, making sure I don't hurt myself and make sure I don't overexert myself before I get there. The other thing is I'm making sure I have enough food to get there. I'm carrying 5 days of food, but I do plan on getting a resupply in the middle. However, in case there's snow, that road does close. So there's no guarantee in the middle of the Smokies that somebody can get up there to get you food. So you should have a little extra in case you got to wait a day or two because you may not be able to get out.
That was a great point. In fact, you were worried looking at that road leading up to Newfound Gap. There are hikers out there that'll sometimes go into town thinking, oh, I could resupply in Gatlinburg or get that extra meal.
And then the road closes overnight because of snow and you can't get back to the trail.
It's 15 miles to walk back to that trailhead. So for those that are saying, oh, I'll just see what the weather is, and if it gets bad, I'll just get off trail, you may not be able to get back for a couple of days. So that is another good thing. Another tip to consider is that if you get off trail in Newfound Gap, you need to look at the weather that's coming up for the next couple of days, even if it's bad weather then, to prepare that you might be in town for a couple extra days. The thing about Gatlinburg too is that it's very expensive. So unlike other trail towns where it might be, somewhat, pricey, but still reasonable, Gatlinburg can be a couple $100 for a hotel room, which is a lot different than going to Ramblin' Roots and getting a bunk for $45. Right. So you gotta need to prepare for that extra cost that might be associated with being out there. Another weird thing, which I don't understand whatsoever, is that at Newfound Gap, there's nowhere to wash your hands. There's no sinks. So you go to the bathroom there, right? They have bathrooms, guys and girls separated. They have stalls. They have all those things to take care of business, but there's nowhere to wash your hands.
It's weird.
So I asked the hospitals, I was like, why would they not have anywhere to, wash your hands. She goes, well, that's because they don't want dirty hikers washing their underwear in the sink. So I was like, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I wanted to wash all my clothes in the sink. So be prepared after 3 days or whatever, if you're closed or whatever you need to, there's nowhere to wash your hands. And you're not supposed to wash your hands in the streams and so forth. So you're kind of gonna be stinky and dirty, and you're gonna have some nasty hands. So be careful what you're touching and who you're touching, because germs do transmit.
Yep.
So make sure you do bring a little bit of sanitizer with you, or a lot of sanitizer with you. And if you are washing your hands, make sure you're not washing your hands in any streams or anything of that nature where the soap is contaminating those water sources, because those water is being distributed throughout the park, and the last thing we want is to have people get sick or to hurt the animals in the area.
Another weird thing,
Yeah.
very strange about Great Smoky Mountain National Park. For food storage, they do not recognize a bare canister as a valid method for storing your food. In the park, all food must be stored on their wire cables hung up in the air. So if you happen to have a bare can, what they recommend you do is put it in your backpack and hang your whole pack up on the thing, and that meets the requirement for hanging your food. So for people that have a bare canister, it's going to be a little different in the Smokies. You just can't set it outside. You're going to have to figure out how to hang it up on the wire.
I know someone that had to do exactly that. His name was Luscious. Now, Luscious was carrying a Z-Pax Arc Hall, and then prior to going into the Smokies, he upgraded to, I believe, the Balto or some Gregory backpack that was a bigger, standard backpack, but it was huge. And he had a bare canister, and every night he had to hang his bare canister inside of his bag. We had pretty good weather, but the weather changes all the time. It rained only at night for the most part. We had some rain, little spots of it during the day, but during the night when he had to hang his pack, it rained. So not only was he having to hang his pack with the food canister inside of it, but then it would get completely soaked. Now, a plus though about the Smokies is that they do have bare cables there.
Yep.
The bare cables will be accessible. You'll be able to hang all your food, no problems there. But there's also bear boxes, but they're all padlocked. Now, I asked a question about why they're all padlocked.
They're not bear boxes.
They're not bear boxes. They're actually storage boxes to maintain the shelters. But it was like the strangest thing. You get there, you see the bear cables, you're like, oh, okay, that's great. And then you see the bear boxes, like, oh, let's put it in the bear box. You go there, every one of them's locked, but it's because inside of those bear boxes are their storage containers with elements to help take care and maintain the shelters. So plenty of bear cables there for you, didn't have any problem. Now, of all the shelters though that I stayed at, my favorite was Ice Water Spring, followed by Double Spring Gap. Double Spring Gap is right before Kawohe, and if you time it right, if you stay at Double Spring Gap in the morning, you can get up, and then as you're getting up to summit to Kawohe, you're gonna be walking through a lot of moss, a lot of incredible trees, the firs, it's just incredible environment. Love Double Spring Gap, but Ice Water Spring also has an incredible view. Not like this view per se. Actually, I would say it's a full view right behind the shelter where you can actually see the sunrise come up, which is excellent. Had a great time at Ice Water Spring. Now, from there, we went to Cosby Knob because I think we wanted to make sure we went to, I think most of the shelters have privies, but not all of them do. That's another pro tip.
It's a Tennessee, North Carolina thing. And
oh, okay, that makes sense. So if it's on one side or the other.
Tennessee, I might have this reversed. I believe Tennessee, as a state in general, they have no privies.
Oh.
So if you're in Tennessee, no matter where in Tennessee, you're not going to get a privy. There are none. So, and the shelters are kind of staggered. Some are on the left side of the trail and some are on the right side of the trail. I think the ones on the left have no privies and the ones on the right do, because it runs right up the border.
So for those that haven't used their trowel out in the woods or dug a hole, here's 2 tips that I would give you for those that have to dig a hole, especially in areas where you might have a lot of people at a shelter where a privy is not available. 1, go to the top of the hill. Most of these shelters are going to be in a gap. I think it's better to go to the top of the hill so that way you can see everybody down below versus everybody looking at you further down, taking care of business. The second thing is with the digging a cat hole, people say at least 6 inches. I say you need to go a little bit further because Well, everybody misjudges what 6 inches looks like. So if you think it's 6 inches, go 2 inches deeper, because this is what happens, which is the worst thing that can happen at any campsite, especially if you're not using a privy. If a privy is available, use the privy. If it's not there, make sure you dig it 8 inches. I say 8 inches just to make sure you get that 2 extra inches that you didn't think you needed to do. But if you don't do that depth, right, the worst thing can possibly happen is you're gonna fold over the dirt and it might be a little bit cushy, right? What I call those is a jelly donut. The last thing anybody wants is to walk across a jelly donut, and that will ruin anyone's day because you ain't cleaning your shoe off and it's gonna stick with you for the rest of the day. So jelly donuts are what I call a cat hole that was not dug to proper protocol per se. So make sure you dig your cat holes 2 inches deeper than you think you need to. So those are some of the tips that I would cover. Oh, another good one with the Smokies, especially if you're exiting at Davenport Gap. You may think that there's gonna be a lot of things going on there when you get out of the park. There's nothing there, right? And the next thing that you have is Standing Bear Hostel. Don't expect a welcome wagon there. Now, when we went there, there was nobody doing trail magic. That might change by the time you get there. But when we got out at Davenport Gap, we didn't see anybody. And as we got out into the woods and then into the clearing where the interstate was leading up to Standing Bear, again, there's nobody there because they have just opened up that highway. There was a lot of damage that came to that area. So don't expect to see a lot of people, but it's not going to provide a lot of resources. Your next resupply spot is going to be Standing Bear. I definitely recommend, if you have no food, that would be a place to stop. But if you have to get out of that area, it is quite a drive. I would definitely recommend having a shuttle lined up in advance to help you with that service. Standing Bear may be able to help you. You may want to call ahead, but from what I've learned, it's first come, first serve. If they can help you, great. If not, I don't think that they're going to line things up and hold things for you. So make sure you have something or someone there to help you with your resupply as you get out of Davenport Gap, because there is little to no amenities for you, especially as you begin moving northbound from there into Hot Springs. So I think we've covered a lot here on this live stream, more than a mouthful. I think it's time for dinner. If you guys had a great time on today's live stream, make sure you like this live stream, but also put a comment down below. And if you haven't checked out Chris Oconee, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Chris Oconee. His trail name is Alpha Gal. His YouTube channel is Chris Oconee. And if you want to see those videos starting at Winding Stair, leading into Fontana Dam, to give you an idea of what the snow looked like at Siler's Bald or any of the wonderful overlooks that we saw, make sure you check out Chris Oconee. He has an excellent channel. Anything you want to add, Chris, before we get off?
No, not at all. I'm looking forward to getting moving up into the Smokies. And I think right?
Yeah.
There, I think that's Kauai.
Yeah,
right
there you go. You'll be there.
Or Mekalakai, Mekaniho, or whatever it is. Clingman's Dome. I think it's that one right there.
Somewhere there. The other update I wanted to share with you guys is that I'm not just, hyping Chris Oconee's channel just for we've known each other for over 10 years, and this has been something we've been talking about for years, is hiking the Appalachian Trail. So you're going to see a lot more of Chris Oconee in my YouTube channels, because after he gets out of the Smokies, I will be joining him full-time going northbound to Katahdin. So we're very excited. Lots of videos coming out. And again, if you want more up-to-date daily videos, make sure you check out his channel. He's a great guy, great content, and it always captures what the Appalachian Trail has to offer. So if you found any value in this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and send me your comments, as I do respond. As always, thanks for watching. But until next time, let's keep moving.
Let's keep moving.